Did you know that the most valuable substance on the Silk Road wasn't silk or gold, but secrets? For 2,000 years, empires rose and fell along a network of roads that connected east and west, and the spies who walked these routes changed history more than any army ever could. Most people have never heard about the Shadow War fought on the world's greatest trade route, but by the end of this video, you'll discover how merchants were actually intelligence agents, how one woman's secret mission saved an empire, and how the pursuit of luxury goods reshaped our world. You'll discover the shocking truth about how the Silk Road was never just about trade. It was a 2,000-year-long game of espionage, cultural warfare, and the rise and fall of the world's most powerful empires. Everything you thought you knew about this ancient highway is about to change, and the secrets hidden in its dust will blow your mind. In 1380 BCE, a Chinese diplomat named Zheng set out on what should have been a simple trade mission to find allies against the Huns, who were terrorizing China's borders every single year. He disappeared for 13 years into the vast deserts and mountains of Central Asia, becoming a prisoner, escaping captivity, and returning with information that would change history itself. While most history books say Zheng opened the Silk Road for trade, the real story is that he was China's first international spy, and his mission created the greatest intelligence route ever known to humanity. What he brought back wasn't just knowledge of foreign lands, but secrets about how to control the flow of information, luxury, and power across thousands of miles daily. When Zheng returned to the Han Dynasty court, he described kingdoms that had never been in contact with China before, lands flowing with grapes, horses, and most importantly, technologies. The Han Emperor realized something crucial. Whoever controlled the routes between East and West would control the world's wealth, and more dangerously, they would control what people believed. But there was a massive problem that threatened everything they hoped to build across the world. Between China and the West lay some of the most hostile terrain on Earth, the Taklamakan Desert, known as the place of no return, where entire caravans vanished without a trace in sandstorms. Beyond that were mountain passes so high that travelers suffered from altitude sickness, and in between were kingdoms, bandits, and rival empires all competing for control of these vital ways. The question wasn't just how to move goods safely, but how to move information without enemies.
Here's something most people don't know. For nearly 1,000 years, China held the world's most valuable secret, the method of silk production, and they protected it with the death penalty. Now, anyone caught smuggling silkworm eggs or revealing the process faced immediate execution without trial or mercy, because silk wasn't just fabric, it was China's weapon of economic domination. Roman senators wore silk togas that cost more than a soldier's lifetime salary, completely drunk on luxury, and the Roman Empire was bleeding gold to China at an unsustainable rate every year. The Romans were so desperate to learn the secret that they sent spies disguised as merchants on journeys lasting years, many never returning home, their fates unknown and their missions lost. In 552 CE, two monks finally succeeded in the greatest act of industrial espionage in history by hiding silkworm eggs inside hollowed-out bamboo walking sticks and smuggling them to Byzantium. This single act of theft shattered China's monopoly forever and shifted the balance of power in the ancient world, proving that secrets were worth more than armies on the Silk Road itself now. Every major empire along the Silk Road maintained networks of merchant spies whose real job was gathering intelligence about rival kingdoms, military movements, and technological innovations. These weren't just traders keeping their ears open, they were trained operatives with diplomatic immunity who could cross borders freely while mapping territories and reporting back to emperors. The Sogdian merchants from Central Asia were the most successful at this deadly game of deception. corruption. They spoke multiple languages, practiced multiple religions, and pledged loyalty to no one ruler, making them perfect information brokers who sold secrets to the highest bidder without remorse. One Sogdian merchant named Maniak was sent by the Byzantine Empire to outflank Persian control of silk trade routes, and his mission redirected trade through the Turkic lands to the north now. His journey wasn't recorded in most history books because officially he was just a businessman, but his real mission was to forge a military alliance that would encircle Persia completely then. It left everyone in the Persian Empire scrambling to respond, sparking proxy wars across regions. Most historians don't mention this because they focus on goods and trade, ignoring the fact that intelligence gathering was the Silk Road's primary function for every empire that bordered it now. In the 7th century, a Chinese princess named Wencheng was married off to the Tibetan king in what appeared to be a standard political alliance, but she was actually on a secret mission then. Her job was to spread Chinese culture, Buddhism, and most importantly, loyalty to the Tang court. She brought with her craftsmen, texts, and technologies that transformed Tibet from a collection of warring tribes into a centralized kingdom. But this is the part most history books ignore now. Princess Wencheng also brought intelligence officers disguised as monks and servants who reported everything back to China, from military capabilities to internal political conflicts and secrets. When Tibet grew too powerful and threatened China's western borders, the information her network provided allowed the Tang dynasty to manipulate Tibetan succession disputes and prevent invasion. This wasn't just diplomacy, it was a decades-long intelligence operation run by one remarkable woman whose real story has been sanitized into a romantic tale of cultural exchange and harmony. Here's where the Silk Road story takes its darkest turn into tragedy that killed millions fast. In 1347, the bubonic plague arrived in Europe, but most people don't know it traveled west along the Silk Road from Central Asia, carried by merchant caravans and the fleas on their camels then. The Mongol Empire had unified the Silk Road for the first time in history, making travel safer, but this also created a superhighway for disease that connected every major civilization at once. Entire cities along the route were wiped out, caravanserais became mass graves, and the network that had connected the world for over 1,000 years suddenly became a path of death and fear. The plague killed between 75 and 200 million people, roughly half the affected populations, and it effectively ended the classical Silk Road era as trade routes were abandoned. What's shocking is that Mongol armies actually weaponized the plague during sieges by catapulting infected corpses over city walls, making this one of history's first instances of biological war.
Between 1405 and 1433, Chinese Admiral Zheng led 7 massive naval expeditions with fleets that dwarfed anything Europe would build for another century, reaching Africa and the Middle East. These treasure ships were 9 times larger than Columbus's ships, carrying thousands of sailors, and they represented China's attempt to control maritime trade routes instead of overland routes. But here's what most documentaries won't tell you about why these incredible voyages suddenly end. Political factions in the Ming court who profited from Silk Road trade successfully argued that maritime expeditions were wasteful, and they literally destroyed all records of Zheng He's routes. This wasn't about economics, it was about power, and the deliberate destruction of China's naval capacity was one of history's greatest acts of self-sabotage that changed the world forever then. Within decades, European powers filled the vacuum, and control of global trade shifted from Asia to the West, all because one faction wanted to preserve their Silk Road monopoly at any cost. And if you think that was shocking, the way the Silk Road actually ended is even more unbelievable. Wait until you see what happens when European explorers bypass it entirely and discover exactly what that meant for the empires that had built their entire economies on controlling these routes. The real reason the Silk Road declined wasn't just because Europeans found sea routes to Asia, or because of the plague, though both played major roles in its gradual collapse over several decades. The truth is that the Silk Road killed itself through its own success and the secrets it carried. By the 15th century, so much knowledge had been transferred between East and West that every major power had learned shipbuilding, navigation, gunpowder, and printing from each other already. The very technologies that traveled the Silk Road gave Europe the tools to circumvent it entirely. When Portuguese ships reached India in 1498, they weren't just finding a new route to spices now. They were ending 2,000 years of Central Asian control over East-West exchange completely. The cities that had grown wealthy from the Silk Road trade, Samarkand, Bukhara, Kashgar, became ruins. The caravanserais where merchants once gathered fell silent, and the greatest highway in history became a collection of forgotten paths through deserts that most people would never travel again. But here's the final secret. The Silk Road never really ended. It just transformed into the new networks of information and trade that we call globalization, and the game of secrets continues. If you love uncovering hidden history that changes how you see the world, subscribe right now to discover more untold stories that will blow your mind with every single video we create for free. Comment below which secret shocked you the most: the silk smuggling monks, the merchant spies, or the deliberate destruction of Zheng He's fleet that changed history forever in ways still felt. Next time, we'll reveal the forbidden history of the Library of Alexandria, including the secret scrolls that were hidden before the fire and what they contained that would rewrite ancient world. You won't want to miss what historians have been hiding about humanity's greatest lost knowledge.